Welcome to Gaia's Calling, where stories ignite your spirit and the earth whispers her secrets. I'm Brad Swift, a write-on-purpose author of eco-fiction and non-fiction, inviting you to become an eco-guardian. Together, let's explore the wonders of our world and take action to protect them. Listen closely, Gaia is calling. And today's call from Gaia is unlocking flow, tapping into your inner eco-guardian superpower. This is a one-cause guide for eco-conscious families to activate flow and fuel regeneration. And a lot is happening here as I'm recording this at our loving homestead, including our former tenant downstairs moving out to make room for us moving in. More about that in the near future. I just wanted to include that so you would know if you started hearing barking or shuffling or anything like that, that's what's happening. So let's get into it. Have you ever been so immersed in something you love that time just disappeared? Maybe while playing music or sketching a new idea or building something with your hands, or even just wandering in nature, totally focused and free. That feeling of energized ease, where you're at your best and most creative, has a name. It's called flow. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi and later peak performance expert Steven Kotler described flow as a state of optimal experience, where skill meets challenge, attention becomes laser-focused, and everything else, fades away. It's not just about productivity. It's about passion, purpose, and possibility. And for young eco-guardians in training, flow, it isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. So, why does flow matter now? Let's be honest. Creating a regenerative future isn't going to happen by accident. It requires creativity, resilience, and focus in the face of massive challenges. The kind of focus that can feel hard to find in a world full of distractions, burnout, and crisis fatigue. That's why learning how to access flow, especially during your most meaningful work, is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Flow isn't just for athletes or artists. It's for anyone ready to show up fully in their life and take meaningful action. It's your eco-guardian superpower. Flow is how young people like Boyan Slate envision removing plastic from the oceans and built the ocean cleanup. And if you're on Substack, there's a link to that great information about his project. It's how students across the world have launched school-wide zero-waste programs and started regenerative gardens and turned grief for the planet into focused, inspired action. So let's look at the 4 ingredients of flow and the science behind it. If you want to enter flow more often, you'll need to create the right conditions. Thankfully, research shows there are a few key elements that consistently show up. Steven Kotler, in his books, The Rise of Superman and The Art of Impossible, describes flow as a state of consciousness where we feel and perform our best. He also identifies 22 flow triggers, conditions that optimize your access to this state. And here are 4 of the foundational ones. Number 1, clear goals. You know exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Goals direct your attention and create a target for your efforts. Number 2, immediate feedback. You can tell if you're on track or need to adjust, creating a tight feedback loop that sustains engagement. Number 3, challenge skill balance. You're stretching yourself just beyond your current abilities. Not too easy, but also not too hard. This sweet spot ignites curiosity and determination. And number 4, focused attention. You're fully immersed. Distractions fall away. Neurobiologically, this often corresponds to what scientists call transient hypofrontality. Whew, what a word. A temporary down-regulation of the prefrontal cortex, which silences the inner critic and quiets self-doubt. Kotler writes, "Flow is as close to magic as we get." End of quote. It enhances creativity, speeds up learning, and improves well-being. Athletes use it, to break records. And innovators use it to solve problems. And young eco-guardians, we can use it to regenerate the future. And specifically for younger readers, think of this. Flow is like a river. When you know where you're headed and you're given your full focus, you can ride the current with power and grace. So, what gets in the way? Of course, life isn't always flowing. Stress, self-doubt, and constant pings from our phones can all block us from entering this state. But here's a secret. Even those obstacles can become fuel. When you face a challenge that matters to you and meet it with courage, you can flip the script. That's why so many young changemakers describe the moment they came alive as one filled with challenge and purpose. They weren't waiting for perfect conditions. They showed up. They started, and flow found them. And it's not just young change makers. I experienced this myself in a deeply personal way. In 2021, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. It was a jarring and unexpected moment that shook me to the core. But here's what I've discovered in the 4 years since, as I now celebrate 4 years of good health as of June 1st, 2025. That diagnosis became a powerful pivot point. It forced me to reevaluate how I was living. Now for me, I embraced a primarily plant-based diet, which not only supports my healing, but is also gentler on the earth. And I prioritized self-care, especially sleep, and began paying deeper attention to my body's rhythms. The result? More flow. In my writing, in my coaching, in how I show up each day with renewed energy and purpose. That moment of disruption became a gateway to alignment. Sometimes the biggest obstacles carry with them the seeds of our most aligned and fulfilled future. And if you happen to be on Substack, you can see a picture of me where I chose a natural path to allow my immune system to heal my body. And the picture shows me during a high-dose vitamin C treatment. So, flow in action. Zach, Rakit, and Samson's first eco-adventure. Near the end of Dominion Over All, just after Zach realizes he and Angus have made a crucial mistake by traveling to New York instead of Brazil, the story hits its darkest moment. But instead of crumbling under the pressure, the Eco-Guardian team rises to meet the challenge, embodying the essence of flow. Rakit and Samson arrive just in time to help Zach course correct. There's no blame, no time to wallow, only shared focus and purposeful movement. They quickly coordinate, with Rakit using her magical abilities as they warp their way to the correct location. Meanwhile, Samson and Zach maintain their calm under high stakes. Once in Brazil, obstacles continue to mount. Unexpected resistance, time constraints, and the need to move through a riotous mass of disgruntled citizens. And yet, the team persists. Everyone is fully immersed, drawing on their unique talents. Zach solicits help from the crowd, while Rakit makes her way back to the spiritual frontier to coordinate a last-ditch effort. Samson continues to provide strength and heart. Even the once chaotic crowd rallies to help, inspired by the team's unshakable resolve. This is flow in action, not the absence of difficulty, but graceful navigation through it. Each setback sharpens their focus rather than derailing them. They are in the zone, individually and together. But flow doesn't just happen in fiction or fantasy. Around the world, real young people are doing the same. So let's take a look at some real-world flow, young eco-guardians in action. For example, Uganda, where they have solar suitcase pioneers. In Uganda, students working with the nonprofit We Share Solar experience flow while building life-changing technology. These students assemble solar suitcases, portable solar-powered kits that provide light and power to off-grid schools and clinics. The process demands concentration, teamwork, and technical skill. These youths aren't just following instructions, they're solving real-world problems. They're engaged in something meaningful and urgent, providing light to communities that often go dark when the sun sets. The pride and purpose that arise from seeing their work power a classroom of delivery safety during a birth is the essence of flow. And you can learn more on their website at wesharesolar.org. And then there's Colombia, restoring land and reclaiming purpose. Fundación Tierra Grata, and excuse me if I'm butchering those terms, they empower rural youth in Colombia to bring sustainability and dignity to their communities through eco-sanitation, solar power, and environmental education. In one project, teens apply agroecology and permaculture practices to restore degraded farmland. And they dig compost trenches, build raised beds, plant native species, and teach their neighbors about sustainable practice, all reconnecting with the land and their own capacity to create change. With every seed planted and every workshop delivered, they're tapping into purpose-driven flow. And again, more information on their work at tierragrata.org. That's TIERRAGRATA.org. So, let's pause a moment. Which story resonated most? Zach's fictional challenge, the Ugandan solar students, or the Colombian land restorers? Let's keep the conversation going below, and again, if you're on Substack, you can leave a comment right there. The pivot from flow after disappointment. Just a few days ago, I submitted a detailed book proposal for one cause to a publisher I deeply admire. I spent weeks, really more months, crafting that vision. And yet, less than 24 hours after submitting it, I received a thoughtful but firm rejection. Well, it stung. I felt deflated for a moment, wondering, was it worth all the many hours and the effort? But then I remembered something I've been learning over and over again. In moments like these, we have a choice. I chose to purposely pivot. I reread the publisher's comments. I listened to what they saw clearly. And I got back to writing this very chapter, this one you're reading now. Because flow doesn't always show up in the easy wins. Sometimes it's what we find after falling down and deciding to get back up. So just a note, I want to thank you for reading One Cause. This post is public, as are all of them, so feel free to share it with anyone curious about how flow can be a bridge to personal and planetary transformation. Your flow challenge. So, what about you? When have you felt fully alive and focused? What project or purpose could pull you into that space again? It's okay to start small. You could write or draw about your last flow moment, or you could choose one small project that excites you. Or you could start by eliminating distractions, set a clear goal, and give it all you have. You don't have to change the world all at once. You just have to begin. So, flow into community, a 4% stretch. Here's the truth. Writing these articles is one thing. I find it interesting and yet challenging. But inviting you into a shared journey, well, that's something entirely different. Lately, I felt the nudge to create more opportunities for real conversation with you, the reader. To open the door for this movement to become, a movement of movements. And yet, just beneath that impulse lies a fear. The fear that I'll put out the invitation and no one will show up. Or maybe worse, people will show up and I'll have to lead the dance. But here's what I know about flow and from the science of change. Transformation doesn't require a heroic leap, just a stretch, just 4% beyond your comfort zone. That idea comes from peak performance researchers and thinkers like Brian Johnson, who highlights his principle in the Philosopher Notes and in his Optimized +1 Wisdom series. It's also woven through the work of Steven Kotler. Why 4%? Because it's the optimal edge, enough to challenge you to grow, not so much that it triggers overwhelm. It's the edge of flow itself. So, here's my 4% stretch. I'm planning a live, virtual conversation space. Something like an Earth listening circle modeled after the one I recently hosted locally that brought together hearts and minds around the theme of one cause. We'll create space to reflect, share, and imagine regenerative futures together. And I'm stretching in other ways, too. My wife Ann and I are right-sizing our lives as we transition to the downstairs level of our home, moving from a spacious 4-bedroom, 3-bath space to a much more compact 1-bedroom, 1-bath layout. We're making room, literally, for our daughter, her husband, and our 2 young grandkids, Logan and Piper. We're choosing community over convenience, simplicity over space. And yes, it's definitely more than a 4% stretch, but that's the nature of living into a new vision. It's your turn. Would you be willing to stretch with me? Not 100%, not even 10%, just 4%. Maybe that means RSVPing for this upcoming call, or forwarding this article to a friend with a note, "This made me think of you," or journaling your next flow goal, or sharing your reflections in the comments below. Whatever your stretch is, let it be real. Let it be yours, and let it move you closer to the world you want to help create. Because the current is already flowing. We just have to say yes to riding it together. So, what's your 4% stretch right now? I'll be going first in the chat thread, which is a link right below, and I would love to hear from you as well. And coming soon. In our next article, we'll explore how flow moves beyond an individual superpower and becomes a collective force. We'll look at what happens when groups of people interflow together, especially when united by a shared purpose like healing the earth. And as part of that next chapter, we'll also be exploring a virtual Earth listening circle style gathering later this summer. Think of it as a real-life experiment in group flow, a chance to step into community, share stories, and imagine what's possible together. Stay tuned for more details, and let's keep flowing forward. The next article explores group flow and info on our first virtual gathering and how you can participate. Please subscribe to stay connected. This is how movements begin. And P.S. In an effort to live true to the guiding principles within the Four Great Truths, here are a few photos. And I'll just read the captions that are below them for those of you who may not actually be able to see them. The first one is of our emergent food forest, complete with newly planted garden, apple, peach, and pawpaw trees, and blueberry bushes, which are not really visible in this photo. And there's the two kids, Logan and Piper, riding to the loving homestead to deliver the new peach tree. Logan's not really upset. He was simply laughing at his mom as she struggled to get the tree into the van. And my last one, our newest addition to the loving homestead family. Her name is Eve, or Eva, and she's a 2015 Nissan Leaf EV, which means all-electric vehicle. And she's as clean and perky as she looks.